Hello and welcome to the Welliverse with Tim and Chris.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. This week we're going to talk about pain and your brain. I'm
Mate.
Tim.
Oh, sorry, babe. And I'm Chris.
And it's really great to be back.
It is good to be back. We've had a bit of a break again, but that doesn't matter. We're here and we're ready with something interesting to talk about. And I think it's funny that we're talking about pain because we've just made it through the CrossFit Open. So...
Oh, Chris, what have you been putting your energy into this week?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that. Again, stressing about what the workout was going to be, 17.5. And it turns out it was something that is really achievable for me. And I smashed it and I was super happy. And now I'm a little bit sore, but happy. Sore and happy.
Cool.
Yep. How about you, babe?
What have I been putting my energy into?
Yeah.
Nothing big. Yeah, I suppose. Grinding through to the last workout of the CrossFit Open. So 5 weeks in a row of showing up and doing something hard. But, you know, it's pretty much the same. Just go to work, come home, maybe do some research on pain.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. If you're a first-time listener, I'd just like to give you some context. Tim and I are married. I'm a primary teacher and personal trainer. And Tim's a physiotherapist. And so we know a fair bit about, well, a lot of things. But what we're mainly interested in talking about on our Welliverse podcast is basically anything that has anything to do with being well, feeling well, living well. So if you tune into our previous episodes, you'll see or you'll hear a lot of stuff about eating well and moving well. And I think Tim particularly was inspired to do this episode because pain is something that everyone in their life experiences at one point or another, and it can radically change somebody's life. And yeah, it'll be interesting to dig a bit deeper and find out what's actually going on when we feel pain. I
actually just thought of a cool thing I've been putting my energy into this week, and it actually doesn't have anything to do with pain at all, but I've been putting a lot of energy into one particular inpatient at the hospital where I work, and I've told you about her before, Chris. This patient had a really heavy stroke, a dense stroke, and when she first came in, couldn't move her arm at all, and only her leg slightly. And this week, she's been getting better and better every week, but this week she is now walking with me just close by, like within arm's reach, but without needing a stick or any kind of walking aid, which is huge.
That is huge.
So I've been riding her pretty hard and being really tough on all of her movement that she has to do to stay safe when she's walking and not catch a toe and fall. So yeah, she's tired and she's still got a lot of good quality life to be living. So hopefully she continues to get better and better outcomes.
And isn't that a pretty perspective-giving little story? You know, that lady's been putting her energy into trying to walk safely without falling over. And yeah, we're pretty lucky to have the energy that we have and to be doing what we're doing. So yay.
Into it?
Into it.
Okay, so this episode is probably going to be me talking about things I find really cool, and Chris just trying to bring me back and making it relatable. So Chris,
for the layman,
the laywoman, is
because I'm the laywoman.
Yeah. Okay. So first question is, Chris, how would you define pain?
Okay, I would say pain is something that hurts, something that makes you have a response physically in your body. I guess it depends whether we're talking about physical or mental. Are we talking about just pain in general? Yep.
Yeah, I suppose.
Something that doesn't feel good, doesn't feel right, and makes you want to seek to get back to a normal state of feeling.
Yes.
I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, and that's actually a pretty decent description.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And it lines up with, the textbook definition of what pain is. It's just an unpleasant experience.
Okay, yeah.
That can relate to actual or perceived tissue damage, which is something that we're going to get into, that difference between perception and reality.
Yeah. All right.
Did you ever get taught in bio at school, biology, how pain works?
Yep.
What do you remember?
I remember talking about the neural pathways and depending on where the location of the pain was, you have sensors all over your body, sensors. So, for example, if you put your finger out and you touch a hot kettle, the glass bit, or you put your hand in a fire, those neurons or receptors will send a message, up through the spinal cord into your brain.
I'm nodding.
And your brain will, this is going back a long time, your brain will say, hey, what? Don't do that. Ow! And then it sends the message back to the motor neurons, and the motor neurons pull away. Or,
So that's how...
So that's a pain response,
That's how burning your hand works.
Yeah. I guess that was the example that they used.
That's the sort of explanation of pain that I remember from high school as well. And that's it. It's simple and it's easy, but pain's actually a lot more complex than that. So the best way to understand the increasing complexity with which we've understood pain is to go through three main theories of pain and how we understand it. The very first theory of pain that was kind of published and became popular was by a man named René Descartes. And he had this very simple, close to the bio explanation you've just gone through, like a signal theory of pain, where you, touch the hot thing and it creates a wound in your flesh, and that creates a certain amount of signal that goes up the wires that are nerves, and your brain perceives X amount of signal, therefore you have X amount of pain.
Right.
So it's like,
input,
the button gets pressed,
output.
The buzzer goes off a certain volume, and that is your pain experience. And that was a few hundred years ago. Why are you looking at me funny?
Nothing. Your voice is very low when you talk about pain.
Oh, it's serious.
Serious and sexy.
Right.
What kind of pain are we talking about?
There's a fine line between pleasure and pain.
Sorry, continue.
Okay, just look at the microphone, please.
Okay.
And where were we? So, Descartes, signalling. The next main thing in our three main theory points is a theory put forward by two people called Melzack and Wells in 1965, and it's called the pain gate theory. And they were trying to explain and understand the complexity of pain, and how come someone, post World War II, they've been thinking about how do these soldiers go out onto the battlefield and continue doing things with, serious injuries without, if it was just a button being pressed and them experiencing pain, how is it they could continue to do things and not experience extreme pain until maybe days later once the emergency had passed?
Yes, that is interesting.
And so, similar things in sporting events where someone gets hurt, but they manage to keep playing, and it's not until afterwards that they realise they've broken their neck or something like that. Oh, yeah.
I remember my dad, when we were little, we went on a skiing trip, and one of the days he had a fall. He wasn't that old back then, but anyway. He fell over, and I think he kept skiing for the next couple of days, and it wasn't until we got back that, he wasn't comfortable the whole time, the rest of the trip, but he kind of ignored it, and then when we got back home, boy, oh boy, it was hurting. Went to the doctor, and he'd cracked a rib when he fell over. So I think it is interesting how you can sort of ignore or put off.
Deal with, yeah. It's only a broken rib.
The experience of pain.
Yeah. Okay, so the pain gate theory talks about how it's starting to add some science to our explanation of how pain works. And pain sensors in your skin that you're talking about, they're scientifically called nociceptors, which is just
I knew that word.
Yeah. And so they become synonymous with pain sensors. Okay, so a nociceptor's stimulated.
I just want to let you know that Tim keeps touching me, like, to try and give you guys an example. Like, so he's touching me to cause pain. So this is what I'm going through for you.
With my soft
Yeah,
finger.
you can't see it. So, yes, a nociceptor is stimulated with Tim's soft finger.
Grow up. That nociceptor's on the end of one single nerve cell or a neuron. Okay, and there'll be a bunch of neurons all being stimulated at once. And all of those nerve cells do join up to a peripheral nerve. And that nerve then joins onto your spinal cord, where that nerve has a little gap, and then it actually attaches to the spinal cord, which is part of your central nervous system. So
What's the gap for?
Well, the gap is just the peripheral nerve and the central nerve joining together. And across that gap is where the message needs to go from one nerve to another.
And it's kind of like electricity, right? Like
Yeah.
It sort of jumps.
Yeah, so there's a neurotransmitter gap where the signal travels along the nerve, hits the end, and it's acetylcholine mostly that is the neurotransmitter.
That was above the laywoman's head.
I think I went a little deep there, didn't I? And then so it enters the central nervous system and the spinal cord. The spinal cord actually processes the information a little bit, and the message goes up through the different parts of the brain. Okay.
When you say it processes the information a little bit, what do you mean?
Well, that's the whole theory, the pain gate theory. So
the spinal cord's the pain gate?
When that message goes up to the spinal cord, the spinal cord decides, well, do I need to amplify this message and send it through?
Or can I deal with it?
Or do I need to damp it down? How strongly do I need to send it through to the brain?
Right.
And so the way that happens is there are actually different types of nerve fibers that go through. There's these A fibers and C fibers are the biggest different types. A fibers are thicker and transmit the signal a lot faster. And so A delta fibers, particularly when you burn your hand, you get that immediate sharp bang of pain. It travels really quickly up those A fibers. Once the immediate bang has gone, you have a dull throbbing ache. You know that feeling?
Yep.
It's like a C fiber type pain. It's just a smaller, different.
Is it just
nerve.
slower to react, or has it been reacting the whole time, but the A fiber just sort of drowns it out?
Well, the thicker fibers,
That was a really good question.
They
by the way.
transmit the signal a lot faster. So I had to write it down. So there's
to write it
there's
down.
three different types of A fibers. There's A alpha fibers, which they transmit a signal up your nerve from your finger to your brain at 100 meters per second on average.
Wow.
Yeah, like Usain Bolt, 10 times faster. Yeah. Those A alpha fibers, they transmit information about joint position, so that's like proprioception and spatial awareness stuff. There's also A beta fibers that just transfer information about touch. And they're about half as fast as the A alpha fibers. So they're only transmitting at about 50 meters per second.
Slow pokes.
Yeah. And the ones that we were talking before about pain, the A alpha, they have that sharp bang of pain straight away. They're still really fast. They're transmitting information at 20 meters per second, which per second is still pretty darn quick up your arm.
You mean A delta?
A delta.
You just said A alpha again.
Sorry. A delta are the pain fibers with quotation marks there. So that's a really fast reaction time. These A delta fibers get that pain to your brain really quickly. But the C fibers, they're only transmitting at about 1 meter per second, which is why you can stub your toe and you hold your breath, and then those C fibers hit your brain.
Or
and you
same
get
with
that.
a paper cut?
Yes.
Like it doesn't hurt straight away, but then,
C fibers take it up, and whoa, that does hurt.
Yep.
So the pain gate theory states that the A beta, the touch fibers that are really fast, they can get some information to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord can use that A beta information and decide to turn down, so to diminish the signal that it's getting from the the A delta or the pain signal. So it's why when you bump your knee and you rub it,
Yeah.
that feels better.
What? Because you're manually turning the signal down.
Yeah, because you're creating a competing signal for touch that your brain goes, okay, well I can deal with that, and because of that sensation,
It dulls the
I'm going to
other
pay less attention to the pain signal.
I like it.
It's the same reason that those electrical stimulators work, the TENS machines.
Yep.
They have like just don't have to rub your leg the whole time. It's a touch-based signal that the spinal cord and the brain together deal with, that reduce the attention that your body's paying to the pain.
Wow.
Yeah, really interesting.
Very. So the third theory?
The third theory is complex. There's lots of people looking into current theories about how pain works. My favourite, probably the most charismatic, is a physio, an Australian physio named Lorimer Moseley.
He's pretty funny.
What he is trying to get across to clinicians like myself and really anyone who's experiencing or helping people who are in pain is that pain is in your brain. Not that your experience isn't real, not that your pain doesn't count or you just need to wish it away.
But that pain is interpreted and experienced by the brain.
Yes. So no brain, no pain.
Well, no brain, no anything.
Yes.
So what does Lorimer have to say?
Plenty of things. I don't think these new theories have a consolidated name, but let's just call it modern thinking of pain.
Okay.
Change of topic for a moment.
Oh, all right. That's interesting.
When is a pain in your arm not a pain in your arm?
When it's a pain in your neck. No, what? I don't know. Is this a joke?
No, like if you had a pain, say perhaps here in your left arm.
Yep.
When would it not be a pain in your left arm?
When you're experiencing the pain.
When it's a heart attack.
Oh.
Have you heard of that?
No, I feel really dumb.
So it's a fairly common thing that if someone has pain in their jaw or their chest
on the left side
or their left arm, you think, is my mum having a heart attack?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know why it is that people get pain in their jaw or their arm? Or could you guess?
Nope. Couldn't it, like, I know the heart is on slightly the left side of the body. That's all I know.
Yep.
I know nothing.
What it is that those pain fibers, those sensory relayer cells, they all join from your jaw and your left arm and your heart onto the spinal cord at pretty much the same spot. So when you're getting a bunch of pain coming from your heart, your brain and your spinal cord can misinterpret exactly where those signals are coming from because they're all joining on at right next to each other.
Is it also maybe because your brain isn't used to feeling pain from your heart?
Yeah, it's not perfect.
So it's just going to say, well, we felt left arm pain before, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
it's left arm
it's
pain.
very close to.
Go, left arm, hurt.
Yes, yeah. So that's an example of how the pain is an experience that is shaped by your brain. Oh, look, I had a left arm pain before.
So even though there's nothing actually wrong with the left arm at all.
No.
So nothing's happening in the left arm.
No.
Because I always assumed that when you're having a heart attack, your left arm hurts because there's some kind of like blood blockage in there and it's like going to explode. That's literally what I thought was happening.
So it's called referred pain, where there is something definitely going on.
By the way, please do not judge me if you knew that was not the case. My brain takes things very literally.
Oh.
So this is good. This is what we're learning about pain. It is not always literal.
Yeah, so it's really common for physios to be having to, and anyone who's dealing with pain, to be trying to sort out, what the pathology is and if it's a referred pain or otherwise. So the heart attack's a really good example because most people have heard of it before, and it really clearly demonstrates that there's nothing going on in your jaw or your arm. there's something
Yeah.
going on in your heart.
Interesting.
There are plenty of things that influence your experience of pain. So it's not just how strong the signal is that your brain deals with. It also is, the second time you had a heart attack, you probably think,
I recognize
dear,
this. Yeah.
I spent a week in ICU and it was terrible, and my family came and said goodbye to me. Or heart attack wasn't so bad. I went to work a day after.
Yeah, depending on your experience of it. Interesting.
So your current emotional and psychological state affects how bad your pain is. Memories.
Makes sense.
Yep. Your parents' attitudes that they instilled in you.
About pain.
Yep.
Ooh.
All your beliefs and values. How have your parents affected your pain?
Well, the way Mum spoke about pain was very much, I can't deal with pain at all. Like, she will be the first one to admit that she's got a very low pain threshold. And so I think that was kind of just what I grew up thinking. Like, pain bad, don't feel it, and avoid any situation where you might feel it is kind of what I've grown up thinking. So I think that probably makes me a little bit more sensitive to pain psychologically.
Compared to the average.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the average is. So just, I know for me personally, I'm very
if you had a bit more
nervous of pain.
Just, it's all right, just suck it up.
Yeah, rub some dirt in it. That wasn't really my attitude growing up. But I do think that affects, your threshold for pain and discomfort.
There are a few different types of pain. The theory we were going through before about how a nociceptor is activated and it goes through your spinal cord and your brain, deals with it. It's called nociceptive pain. And that nociception, goes into your brain through a part of your brain called your thalamus. Thalamus is like a switching station. It decides to send signals to different places. And those nociceptor signals are sent by your thalamus to your somatosensory cortex, which is just the part of the brain that involves sensation. Okay, and it's right next to the part of the brain that sends the power out to make you move your muscles. The thalamus also sends those sensations, or the signals of the sensations, to your frontal cortex, which is where your thinking and your personality is. Okay, which is why your past experiences and your memories affect your experience, and also to your limbic system, which is to do with your emotion. So if you're currently, feeling terrible or you're feeling scared, all of your pain experience will be amplified.
Wow.
Yeah. So
so interesting.
Yeah. So your front brain, your frontal cortex, your somatosensory cortex, and your limbic system are probably the three parts of your brain that actually affect it.
So they contribute to sort of the degree to which you will experience pain.
Yeah, well, it's exactly the same thing that we were just saying about how there are things that influence your pain, your social history.
Those are the actual bio.
It's just the anatomical places in your brain that mostly deal with those things.
Yeah, interesting.
And somehow putting a label on it and saying, you process your memories here in your frontal cortex, it makes people realize, like, oh, wow, that's a real thing. It's kind of science, not just psychology.
You've written there, like, I just had a peek at your notes. You wrote that gender influences how we experience pain. Is that because, like, stereotypically, we're told that women are gentle and fragile and men should just be rougher and be able to deal with it? Is that kind of...
I actually don't know which direction sex influences pain.
Oh.
I didn't look into it, but I know that one of the most common ways that researchers test pain is to ask participants to place their hand or whatever in a bucket of uniformly ice-cold water. So if you've got a bunch, I'm assuming a bunch of 100 men and 100 women, ask them to put their hand into, that minus 10 degree bucket of water and hold it there as long as possible, and then ask how it was. That's how they'd be distinguishing between the sexes about their pain experience. But I don't know which way it skews. Maybe
It's
we'll check
interesting.
that out and put it in the show notes.
We should do, because something comes to my mind that maybe I'm biased towards my gender, but I feel like in terms of pain that you have to go through as a person in your life, I feel like women have the raw end of the deal. I particularly, growing up, suffered from incredibly awful period pain. So I know what that's like, and I know that not every woman has it as bad as that, but it's not a monthly thing that men have to deal with. They don't have pain, and it can be debilitating for some women. And childbirth, which, in relation to that, is something that, most women will go through, that men will never experience. And so I think it's really interesting. I wonder how that influences women's perception of pain, especially once they've been through something like childbirth. I don't think anything would ever compare, anything in the norm, unless they had a horrible physical accident.
Yeah. And what I think is that the differences between men and women that they're talking about here would be social rather than
Agreed.
anatomical.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just assuming.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, like what you were saying about how our emotions affect how we experience pain. Something my mum said to me was, like, childbirth was the most painful and, like, awful experience ever. But she said as soon as you're holding the baby, it's just such a different memory. And somehow you're willing to go back and do it again, because all of that, the hormonal response that floods your body once you have that baby just says, yes, like, this is the right thing for you to do. So it's kind of like your brain says you can deal with the pain because of the result that you'll get, which is probably one of, other than exercise, that's one of the only examples of where you sort of choose to go through pain for a reward.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's what actually gets back to that proper definition of what pain is. It's an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage. Well, giving birth is a very, very
actual tissue
painful
damage.
thing to have happen.
Yep.
But is it an unpleasant experience?
I'd say so, but you get
On the whole. So like when your brain's
I
adding
see.
up baby versus experience, most people end up with baby on the plus.
Yeah, worth it,
Yeah.
they say. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
And so when you remember that, you're not thinking tissue damage, you're thinking baby Chrissy,
No.
which is a good thing.
Oh, thanks,
Oh.
babe. Oh, that would be a good thing. Anyway. Next.
Practice makes perfect.
You mean you get better at being in pain?
Yeah, of course. So those little nociceptors right on the edge, the more you use them, the more dense they become.
Okay, hang on. When we say you get better at being in pain, do you mean you will experience more pain, the more pain you experience, or your body will get more used to it and it will be duller? What do you mean?
No, you get better at experience it more exquisitely. Like the more wine that you drink and you talk about and you swish around your mouth
and nose it.
You nose it, the better you get at distinguishing different types of wine. The same with your pain. If you've got this knee pain and you think about it all the time and talk about it and sit there and write a pain journal about it and practice your pain a lot, you're going to get really good at doing your pain. And there's physiological things that actually happen as you practice paying attention to your pain. So like I was saying, the nerve fibers that are sending the signals, they become thicker and more myelinated. They're sending the signals, better. The gap between the peripheral nerve and the spinal nerve, where there's that acetylcholine, there's more synapses happening and more neurotransmitters sending that signal. It's going up through the spinal cord into the brain, and the area that's dealing with that sensation becomes physically bigger on your brain.
So
the representation of your knee in your somatosensory cortex becomes bigger because your brain's dealing with all of that sensation.
Is this all related to sort of chronic pain? Like when you experience pain over and over?
Well, that's what I mean by practice makes perfect. So there's chronic pain, like you mentioned, which for most people is a pain that's longer.
More than 6 months, is it?
Yeah, maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit more correctly, chronic pain is a pain that persists beyond normal tissue healing time.
Yes,
So
okay.
an acute pain is I burnt my hand. Oh, wow, that's really hurty. Oh, it's kind of throbby. Depending on the extent of the burn, by the next day, that sort of burn on your finger should be pretty good. But if for some reason that burn, maybe you do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day after that, you just keep, burning your finger on the tray, all of a sudden one day it doesn't go away, even though the skin looks like it's healed, that would become a chronic pain.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't really make sense to me. So people who are suffering chronic pain, I always assume they've got an ongoing pain stimulation, as in, they've got a disease inside their body that keeps sending the signals.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people out there who have some ongoing process that continues to activate nociceptors. So maybe they've got an arthritic knee and it's crunchy and grindy, or maybe they have poor biomechanics and their hip, knee and ankle are all moving funny, and every day they continue to go running every day, and they've got this chronically painful ankle because of daily acute input they're putting into it.
Okay, yep.
But true chronic pain is the tissues have healed, but the pain system is still going off.
Yep.
And that's something that's happening in the brain and in those nervous system tissues that we were talking about before.
So why does it happen?
It's a malfunction, but it happens for lots of reasons.
Yeah. And so just because these people aren't actually experiencing just because their tissues are no longer damaged, but they're still experiencing pain, it doesn't make that pain any less real in the way they experience it.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting and terrible.
So there's a book that Dr. Carl actually references all the time in his Triple J podcast, and it's called Scratching an Itch Through the Scalp to the Brain. And it's about a lady who had issues, and that's beside the point. But a quote from that is, "Perception is the brain's best guess about what is happening in the outside world. Perception is inference." All of our senses are just sensors
but we
taking in
interpret
information
them.
And dealing with them.
And we can only interpret them based on our experiences.
Yeah.
Based on our context, so what we've experienced before. Oh, that's deep.
Yeah. And so there's another quote by Lorimer Moseley in a paper that he wrote a couple of years ago in 2015. "There's a very large body of evidence that demonstrates that nociception, those sort of pain fibers, is neither sufficient, on its own, nor necessary for pain." So you don't need any of those A fibers or C fibers going off to actually be having pain.
Well, it can just be happening in your brain.
It can be. But that doesn't mean that you're not having an unpleasant experience. Doesn't mean that you're not in pain.
It's not like you're lying.
It just means that the traditional explanation of it may not be accurate or helpful for you.
Mm-hmm.
"Doctor, I've been having a painful knee for 4 years. Well, why don't you chop it out and put another one in? Let's see what happens." "Doctor, I've got a new knee in my knee, and now it's still just as painful."
So can you tell me what kind of things then people are doing to treat chronic pain?
We'll get there.
Okay.
First, I want to tell you a story. Okay, so this is an analogy from that book, Scratching an Itch Through to the Brain. Imagine you're driving along and the engine failure light on your car pops up. Whoa, you think, I don't want my car to blow up. So you take it to the mechanics. The mechanics look over the car. They say, "There's nothing wrong with your engine. It all looks pretty fine. Go home." But the engine warning light's on, do something about it. This is serious. I don't want my engine to blow up. Mechanics say, we've looked at every single thing. It's all fine. Go home. You're really rich and you say, no, replace my engine. Put a new one in. So like, okay, whatever. They do it. You drive your car out of the driveway of the mechanics. The engine warning light is still on. What could possibly be the problem?
The engine warning light is malfunctioning?
The engine warning light is malfunctioning. So the old explanation of pain is, there's something wrong with your knee. There's something wrong with your engine. I'll go to the doctor. I'll get the engine checked out.
Mm-hmm.
But you can put a new engine in. You can even put a whole new knee in. Wait for things to heal and all the swelling to go down. And you can still have pain. That's because the central nervous system has become malfunctioning, and that engine warning light is still stuck on. So it's not just that we get problems with
the
our
actual
knees,
tissue.
we get problems with our systems as well.
Yep. Wow.
So you can get a problem in your knee, but you can also get a problem in your sensation system.
Wow. It's funny because I guess I knew that, but until you've explained it like that, yeah, that's amazing.
So you asked before how we treat it.
Yeah, how you treat chronic pain when there's no actual, thing to fix.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's a process of trial and error, because you want to just go for the most obvious and likely thing. Oh, you've got this relatively recent pain. Let's have a look at the evidence-based things, and we know that some strengthening and some movement and some activity could get you back on track. And look, we moved your knee. It got a bit stronger. Your pain reduced. You got back to normal life. But sometimes that doesn't work.
Yep. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. It was an interview with a lady who has endometriosis. And she was saying, she went in, endometriosis is a disease where the sort of the cells that are supposed to be in your womb grow on the outside and on the surrounding organs, all over. And they basically cause problems and pain, like really bad pain. And this woman said she went and she got the procedure done, the operation done. They took out all the cells that are causing problems. And she said that after the operation, the pain wasn't gone and just continued to intensify. And she, looking back on it and having had lots and lots of therapy since then, knows that now it wasn't just about the cells. It was about the pathways that had been created in her brain.
Exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. So interesting. So she mentioned cognitive therapy was one of the things she did. She said that, they threw all these medications at her with very little sort of explanation of how to take them responsibly. Opioids and things like serious pain medication. And she said that that's probably one of the worst things that people with endo in 10
years' time, we'll look back on our current analgesia approach and think, wow,
we were wrong.
Definitely.
Wow, so interesting. Okay, so what's
so the first step is having that understanding that pain is a multifactorial experience, and it's not just as simple as a button is pressed and the brain experiences however heavily that button was pressed. Once you understand those different factors, you can work at changing them, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, rewiring the brain.
Yeah, but also changing your whole social structure and all of those things. So it's complex and it's hard, but if you do find the right direction to push in, it's so much better than to just be continuing
down the spiral, basically.
Yeah. So Lorimer Moseley and colleagues have a relatively new and as yet sort of theoretical and becoming more evidence-based approach at treating this chronic serious pain. Lorimer's got a book called Explain Pain that really goes into this stuff in quite good detail for both therapists but also people who are experiencing chronic pain, and that links into his their best attempt at treating chronic pain, which is called graded motor imagery.
Oh.
Yeah, and it literally starts with watching other people's painful, like if you've got a painful knee, the treatment literally starts with you watching other people move their knee.
Wow.
Okay,
Why?
Because the pain circuits in your brain can become, in some cases, so sensitized that even thinking about moving your own knee, not moving
painful.
it, even thinking about moving your own knee becomes painful.
Yeah. And is that kind of because the whole reason that we experience pain is a protective response?
Oh, yeah. Back to that definition. It's a perceived threat to self.
Yes. So your brain has gone so far down the rabbit hole that it says, look, just don't even move it.
Don't even think about it.
Thinking about moving it's going to hurt you.
Don't even think about it. Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this graded motor imagery or GMI starts right down that end. If someone's that far down the rabbit hole. It then moves to another sort of sneaky backdoor of activating those pathways in a safe space by doing something called left-right discrimination. So step 2 is you get someone, with a bunch of cards. Say you've got a really, really painful right hand, and there's a bunch of photos of different hands in different orientations: left hands, right hands, left hand, right hand. And you're looking at these cards, you need to make a discrimination about whether it's a left hand or a right hand. To do that, you imagine in your brain, is that a left or is that a right? And that fires up all of your body awareness systems and helps you to start thinking about your painful area without actually thinking about it being painful or being... So it's this sneaky backdoor into starting to just think about your painful area again without getting freaked out.
Yeah.
Then the next main step in the process is something called mirror therapy. Have you ever heard about that before?
Yes. Well, I've heard about that when people have an amputation or something.
Yeah. So it's really common for people post...
And they have pain.
Yeah,
phantom pain.
Yeah.
But then if you put your arm in front of a mirror so that it appears as though you've got... So you put your arm that's still there...
Yeah.
in a mirror, and you can see your arm healed and well.
Yeah. Yes.
On the other side.
And then you think to move,
Yep. Your fingers and
it looks like that missing arm is there and moving, and it's it's been cut off at the elbow, but you look through the mirror at your remaining hand and you see your missing arm looks whole and healed, and it's been itchy, so you scratch it. Someone scratches it for you. Oh, that feels so good. Or it feels like it's needing stretched, so it gets visibly, according to your brain, stretched.
Yep.
Oh, that feels so good.
Wow.
I've got another story.
Okay.
In the British Medical Journal, 1995, a 29-year-old builder accidentally jumped onto a 15-centimetre nail. It went straight through the bottom of his boot and came right out the top, and right at the spot where the boot flexes when you walk. He freaked out. They rushed him to the emergency room of the hospital. They gave him some pretty heavy painkillers, as you would, where you've got this big old nail through a big old boot. They, even just sort of twizzling the nail was really, really painful. He's got this huge 6-inch long nail through his foot. You couldn't take the boot off because the nail's through the middle of the boot. So they removed the nail, took the boot off. It hadn't gone through his foot at all. It had gone in between his toes.
No.
Yes.
That's pretend.
Not pretend. It's in the British Medical Journal.
That's not
It happened.
true.
It totally happened. And it makes sense. He
didn't know.
He didn't know.
But hang on.
He had no reason to fake.
Bleeding everywhere?
No, it's inside a boot. It's all plugged up by the nail. And he would have had some sensation of
Pressure.
the nail going through between his toes.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have fantastic location of exactly where the pressure is. Plus, he's freaking out. He's just felt the thunk of having a nail go through his boot.
No way.
So he's had some sensation. He's heard stories. His brain knows that and has memories. He looks down, he sees a huge nail poking out of these big long boots, and his brain creates all of this pain response. Do something about this. Freak out, call the boss, get to the emergency room, have the thing pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
All of that
And once
process,
that train starts...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something called a nocebo, which is the opposite of a placebo.
So that's an imagined unpleasant response.
It's an imagined, it's a perceived unpleasant response to an unpleasant experience or to an experience.
Yeah.
Whereas a placebo is a positive response.
When you believe it will be good for you, it is good for you.
Yeah.
If you believe that something's going to hurt, then it will.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and that's just a really great
wow.
Sort of demonstration of that nocebo effect.
That's amazing. So I think we don't... The average person just does not know much about how their brain actually is working. Because we always think of our brain... I always think of my brain as just the master of my cognitive thought. But I don't give any thought to how my brain and my nervous system is actually controlling literally everything. Literally everything.
Yeah.
And you think you separate your conscious thought from all those external physical responses. So I think of pain and of sickness as things that aren't within my control at all. I think they're being done to me, and that that I wouldn't be able to influence them. But it's interesting that there's some kind of... Well, there's games we can play with our brain to train it in a certain way, to train the aspects that we think are out of our control. They're not actually.
Yeah. And what's really important is that you feel safe, that you understand the process, and that you don't alert that pain system and keep, getting better at what you practice.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
that GMI, the graded motor imagery approach to dealing with these, intractable chronic pains, to review is you just start watching someone else move. Then you start to sort of get your brain around the idea of dealing with that painful area with those left-right discrimination cards. Then you're allowed to just start imagining moving your own arm, if you can handle that.
Wow.
And it might take a few weeks at a time at each stage. Then you do those mirror therapies where you, get a chance to, look through the mirror and see the thing moving and feel it moving. And then you start functional exposure, where you're actually doing some exercise and starting to load up your tissues and
that's amazing.
have the brain experience the actual thing. Crazy, hey?
It's so crazy. Can I ask a question? Something I think our listeners will be interested in, and something I'm really interested in. Pain as a result of exercise is something that fascinates me. The other day, on Monday, so a week ago now, well, 5 days ago, we did a CrossFit workout that's called Murph. And basically it's just a real poo bum. It's really hard. So Murph is a 1 mile run, which is 1.6 Ks, followed by 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then capped off with another mile of running. I kind of looked at that and thought, oh yeah, like all those things, not too terrible. But doing the workout, it is just overusing those things, really. And so I did it. It took me 53 minutes. It was really, really hard. Felt relatively okay after it. But then day one, following the workout, sore. Domsy, sore, thinking, oh no, I can't even...
delayed onset muscle soreness.
I can't even
Classic.
Lift up my hands above my head.
Any controlled lowering, especially repetitive, you'll get a lot of muscle micro tear and swelling.
Now, what... So there was actual tissue damage, yes? Yeah. Okay. Day two, even more sore. And your brain says, my brain said to me, don't move. I would put my arms, try and raise them above my head, if I was going to wave to someone or whatever. And it gets to a certain point and it's like your brain says, no way, don't go any further. That hurts. Stop. Now, the following day, I was like, well, I still feel really sore, but I'm going to try and do another workout. As soon as I started doing that workout, I immediately started to feel better. Pain was not gone, but it's like, well, oh no, okay, this is okay. We can do this.
Yeah.
It's fine. So is that sort of
totally psychological, or
yeah, how much of it is psychological, how much of it?
It's a mix.
Yeah.
So you try and think, is it body or is it brain? It's always both.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there was a mix of pain inhibition where, it was really sore. Your brain's just going to damp down the signals from your brain to the muscle because it knows that it's going to hurt. Just in the same way the spinal cord can damp down those sensations of pain, your brain can also damp down the amount of output that it's going to put to turn a muscle on when it's in pain.
Yeah,
so that's called pain inhibition.
So it just won't let you do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really common.
And is that the same as when I'm stretching and I'm trying to increase my flexibility, you get to a certain point and it just hurts?
Yep. And so you're getting these co-contractions and you're gritting your teeth and so it's slightly different pathway.
Tight,
but
is that because our brain's saying, well, we haven't moved there like that, don't move there.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens there beyond our range of motion?
Yeah, you knock people out with anaesthetic, their flexibility is much, much better.
So when they're not
conscious. There's a central nervous system and just a nervous system, input into how you hold your muscles that you're comfortable to move through, that is safe, that impacts on your ability to get range of motion. Definitely. It's not just the rubber band that is a muscle that needs to be longer. It's that you need to train your brain to understand those joint position, muscle length, tendon structures, and actually be comfortable and safe there. So you need to breathe, you need to relax, you need to spend time there, you need to gain strength there, you need to use those muscles in those positions, not just stretch them out, which is one part of it.
Interesting.
Last couple of things. What are you going to do about your pain? Or what things work?
Who, me?
People.
Or people, right. You,
So,
all of you. Us. We all.
Moving well is really, really important. But mostly today we've just talked about chronic pain, where things are just still ongoing, even in absence of bad biomechanics or an actual injury. Mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing, all of that stuff's been shown to get you in a safe place and get you feeling good things and feeling less pain.
Yeah.
Okay, you're down-regulating all of those unhelpful brain circuits.
I think it's so interesting how undervalued all of that stuff is. And almost I think the average person either feels embarrassed to try it or feels sort of guilty to waste time taking care of themselves in that sort of, floopsy way. Oh, I'm just going to go and meditate. And I just think it's such a shame because whatever, connotations you've attached to meditation, get rid of them. Meditation is simply, focusing on thought. And can be useful for such a wide range of things.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be sitting cross-legged on a mountain.
No, not at all.
There can be lots of things that you can do that get you into like a meditative flow state. So doing things with other people, if that's what you enjoy, and socializing and playing team sport and, getting outside of your own head and thoughts, all of those things can be types of meditation and are useful in dealing with pain. Embrace pleasant experiences.
Oh, I have no trouble with that.
Yeah. So find things that
you do enjoy,
that feel good. And I think that goes back to the giving birth thing.
Yeah.
It's about your perception of the outcome of the experience.
Okay, but what about people who experience chronic pain turning to things that do numb the senses or that they enjoy, such as alcohol abuse or drug abuse. You know, I think that's very common. They want to just input something that's easy.
Yeah, they're searching. They're searching for that thing to help them be in a safe place. So maybe it's better to say, find constructive things to do that make you feel good.
Yeah.
So it might not be having 25 beers, but maybe having 2 with some friends and having a good time.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like pretty good advice.
Well, yeah, for life.
Yeah, let's go do that.
Unless you're gluten-free.
If you've got any more questions about pain, or you'd like us to actually talk about exercise and pain.
Yeah, which I really would love to, because I think that's fascinating too.
Get in touch.
Yes. You can email us, chris@livingmovingbeing.com.au. You can hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. We're both on there. I'm @livingmovingbeing.
At the Fit Physio.
Yeah, that's Tim. And we love hearing from you. Oh, and we should have probably left this to the end, but, you know, we do not have a sponsor. We are our sponsor.
Yes.
And when it says, like, you know, this episode was brought to you by, you know, Ladies Underwear Central. Oh boy, that's an exciting brand.
What podcast are you listening to?
I was thinking of Rich Roll, but he advertised men's underwear. But anyway,
yes, so comfortable.
Yes.
Well, what do we do, Chris?
We do so many things. Go and look at what we do, please. We do all the things, and we have a lot of good stuff out there for you to take hold of and get involved with. Particularly, we're really excited. We're doing some Bali escapes in September.
Going to Bali.
Yeah.
Got our last little recon in a week and a half.
Yeah, which we can't wait for.
So check out the Insta feed for some of those photos.
You'll see that. And you'll see where the retreat's going to be. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And you may not want to go on a retreat, but you might know someone who could really benefit from a week in Bali and who might be up for that kind of thing. So please spread the word.
I won't talk about pain, unless you ask me.
Yeah, I will talk about whatever you need. But yeah, there's a great package that we've put together. So jump on our website, www.lnbfitness.com. Have a look at all the cool stuff we get up to besides sitting in a room and chatting. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks guys. Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.